Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Donald Trump is desperate for cash. And while it might look like he just pulled a rabbit out of a hat with today's debut of his media company on the stock exchange, the full story is complicated and way more trouble. We're going to dig into all of that. But first, remember, Trump has been hawking anything with his name on it, of course, for his entire life. That's his shtick. Recently, as he's being squeezed by astronomical legal bills, running a campaign getting outraised by the other side, his selling has gone into overdrive. Trump's latest branded merchandise includes the Victory 47 cologne by President Trump, described as, quote, the signature scent of strength and success encased in a luxurious gold bottle, with a gilded bust of Trump serving as the cap. The collector's piece can be yours for just $99. Trump's scents are available alongside his new line of sneakers, including the Never Surrender high tops, quote, bold, gold, and tough, just like President Trump. Limited edition pairs went for $399 before selling out, though I don't think they've shipped them yet, so we'll see if that ever happens. And just today, the ex-president introduced a new product, the God Bless the USA Bible, named for country singer Lee Greenwood's classic tune. For just $59.99 plus tax and shipping, you can own an easy-to-read, large print copy.
All Americans need a Bible in their home, and I have many. It's my favorite book. It's a lot of people's favorite book. This Bible is a reminder that the biggest thing we have to bring back America and to make America great again is our religion. Religion is so important. It's so missing, but it's going to come back, and it's going to come back strong, just like our country is going to come back strong. I'm proud to endorse and encourage you to get this Bible. We must make America pray again.
Okay, really stuck the landing there. Now, you may be wondering what makes this Bible so special. Well, as the website makes sure to note in the frequently asked questions section, it is the only Bible officially endorsed by President Trump. And if you're wondering why a not particularly religious man would endorse a Bible, the New York Times explains, quote, he is getting royalties from purchases. So, obviously the guy will do anything to make a buck. But of course, he is not just any guy. He is the presumptive Republican nominee for president, the person who may be in the Oval Office this time next year. And at least until then, he's the leader of his party with enough power and influence to instruct the House Republican caucus to do his bidding. I mean, right now, he is single-handedly blocking funding for Ukraine, right, at his orders. Think about that. There are many powerful, wealthy, domestic, and foreign interests who have cash and want things that Donald Trump can provide. He has basically opened up a stand with a big bribe me sign hanging over it. Which brings us to the sudden boon of Donald Trump's media company going public and trading on the NASDAQ exchange for the first time today. Bloomberg notes the shares of Trump Media and Technology Group Corp rose as much as 59% before pairing gains, ending the day just up 16%. That puts the value of the unprofitable company at $7.9 billion, providing a potential windfall for Trump as he faces mounting series of legal and financial woes. So Trump owns nearly 60% of the company, which, quote, may ultimately be worth than $6 billion. Now, it's important to note he can't sell his stake immediately due to a 6-month lockup agreement hindering his ability to monetize the shares and ease his present cash crunch. But to be clear, I don't know if people understand this because the headlines are floating around like, oh, it's worth $6 billion. The numbers of the valuation are totally, and I mean totally, disconnected from the reality of the actual underlying business here, which has been an utter, abject, and complete failure. Trump Media, which includes Trump's social media site, Truth Social, has, and I quote here, so far struggled to generate a profit, losing $49 million in the first 3 quarters of last year while delivering, wait for it, just $3.4 million in revenue. Okay? Now, for context, the federal government officially defines a small business as having revenue between $1 and $40 million. Trump Media is a small business. It could get preferential contract treatment when it's dealing with the federal government, like a local mom-and-pop chain or an Etsy seller. We also just saw one of the most successful media companies in the entire country, Reddit, go public in the last few weeks with a valuation of about $6.5 billion. What was their revenue? Well, last year it was over $800 million. It was 160 times more than Trump Media. This is obviously ludicrous. Some of it today driven by the meme stock phenomenon, by people who just love Donald Trump. They want to throw their money at him. They invest in the company the same way they would give him a smaller dollar donation. Okay, fine. Do what you want. There's a bigger problem here, though. It's that anyone who wants to bribe Donald Trump can now just buy his stock. Talk about open for business. We've already seen a version of this play out, or at least something that could plausibly look like how the version might work, between Trump and billionaire Republican donor Jeff Yazd, who's a top American shareholder in TikTok. Remember, early this month, Yazd goes to Mar-a-Lago, meets with Trump at his home in Mar-a-Lago, right? Yazd is one of the biggest donors to Republican politics. And after that meeting, like the next day, basically, or a few days later, the ex-president promptly reversed 180 his position on banning TikTok. He wanted to ban it. Now he doesn't after Jess Yazd talked to him. Now, as it turns out, Yazd was also the biggest institutional shareholder of the shell company that recently merged with Trump Media. The Times explains a December regulatory filing shows that Yazd's trading firm, Susquehanna International Group, owned about 2% of that shell company. Now, it's unclear if Susquehanna still owns those shares. And the company said in a statement that it, quote, is a market maker and has zero economic interest in Trump Media, which I believe. They have plays on both sides. They can sell to whoever, okay? But just take a second and think about the possibilities here for someone that has an interest that isn't just playing market maker. All the people there who want stuff from Donald Trump, from desperately cash-strapped Donald Trump, who's got the clock ticking on the lockup agreement on these stocks. People that want tax cuts and government contracts and favorable treatment in foreign relations. This was already a nightmare the first time Trump ran for president back in 2016. Now he is more desperate with more people who have interest before him. So right now, Donald Trump, the possible next president, is up for sale to the highest bidder. Today, the Supreme Court of the United States of America heard oral arguments in the case to ban the drug mifepristone, which blocks the hormone progesterone. And for decades, it's been one of the safest and most commonly used abortion pills. Medication abortions make up the majority of all abortions in America. Banning mifepristone would be a disaster for vital health care in this country, coast to coast, red states and blue. Fortunately for now, it looks like the arguments against the drug were so transparently ridiculous that even this Supreme Court was not buying it. I'm going to get that into a moment. But first, it is worth remembering just how this case got before the highest court in the land in the first place, something that the vast majority of cases never do. Because the entire undertaking is, in my view, a ludicrous insult to the entire judicial system. So here's how it happened. Back in August of 2022, that's just about a month after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, a brand new entity called the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine was incorporated in the city of Amarillo, Texas. The alliance is comprised of 5 anti-abortion groups, none of which are based in Texas. Now, you may be wondering why a handful of out-of-state groups opposing abortion decided to form their new shell group in a relatively nondescript Texas town along Route 66. And it's because, at the time, Amarillo, Texas functioned as something of a legal loophole for right-wing causes. Due to a quirk in how the U.S. court system worked until just a few weeks ago, all federal suits filed in this relatively small Texas town would fall before the same judge, a guy named Matthew Kacsmaryk. Kacsmaryk first made his name as an activist for far-right religious causes, decrying everything from divorce laws to transgender rights and gay marriage and, yes, of course, abortion rights. In fact, in a 2017 entry Kacsmaryk submitted to a conservative legal journal, he wrote about the need to protect religious medical providers who, in his view, quote, cannot use their pens to prescribe or dispense abortifacient drugs designed to kill unborn children. Notably, not long after Kacsmaryk submitted that article, he actually had asked to have his name taken off of it, citing, quote, reasons I may discuss at a later date. Those reasons became abundantly clear when it was announced that Donald Trump was appointing that Matthew Kacsmaryk to the federal bench. And after years of back and forth with the Senate, he was finally confirmed in 2019. And then, if you wanted to get your case before this extreme right-wing Trump judge, whose views on this stuff were obvious and clear as day, all you had to do was get a ticket to Amarillo, Texas, and figure out a way to file your case there. But even then, you still need to at least pretend to follow the rules of the American legal system, the most fundamental of which is the concept of standing. Before you file a lawsuit, you need to show that you, who are filing the suit, represent someone who is actually being harmed by whatever law or rule you're challenging. Here's where things got a little tricky for that group, the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine. They wanted to ban mifepristone as an ideological project, but the drug has been used safely for 20 years. And it wasn't like it was people who'd been harmed by the drug that were suing. No one was actually harmed by it. So they got a little creative with their legal reasoning. And here's what they came up with. The abortion pill can sometimes give doctors the SADS. No, seriously, they argued, in part, quote, when they're patients of chemical abortions, doctors lose the opportunity to provide professional services and care for the women and child through pregnancy, which causes harms to providers who no longer can care for their patients and bring about a successful delivery of new life. This would be like saying oncologists were being harmed by smoking cessation efforts because they like doing oncology on people with lung cancer, and if there's less people with lung cancer, then they're deprived of the joy of helping people. They're arguing that providing abortion pills harms the doctors because they don't get to deliver more cute babies, and that makes them sad. This is the argument. It is, to put it lightly, a ridiculous argument, but Judge Kaczmarek is not a serious jurist. He's a hack. So to no one's surprise, he ruled in favor of the anti-abortion front group and issued a nationwide injunction in all 50 states of mifepristone, blocking access to it. Now, that decision was stopped by the appellate court. It snaked its way all the way up to the Supreme Court, who heard oral arguments today. And I got to say, even with a court with the same ideological makeup as the one that overturned Roe, it's the same court, except for Ketanji Brown Jackson, they seem pretty skeptical of the anti-abortion pill argument.
Is it the first time? Is it the only time any court has restricted access to an FDA-approved drug by second-guessing FDA's expert judgment about the conditions required to assure that drug's safe use?
Under federal law, no doctors can be forced against their consciences to perform or assist in an abortion, correct?
Do we have to also entertain your argument that no one else in the world can have this drug, or no one else in America should have this drug in order to protect your clients?
This case seems like a prime example of turning what could be a small lawsuit into a nationwide legislative assembly on an FDA rule or any other federal government action.
The difficulty here is that, at least to me, these affidavits do read more like the conscience objection is strictly to actually participating in the abortion to end the life of the embryo or fetus. And I don't read either Scott or Francis to say that they ever participated in that.
Of course, not every justice on the court was quite so skeptical of the anti-mifepristone arguments, as ludicrous as they may be. And they used today's hearing to try and kind of help anti-abortion activists do their homework. Melissa Murray and Ellie Mistal join me on that next.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.